So welcome everybody to the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup. I'm Joy Vernon. I'm the organizer for the meetup, and I am a tarot reader and astrologer and tarot teacher here in Burien, Washington. I'm really excited to have a huge group of people with us today, and I'd like to do a little bit of a, not so much as an icebreaker, but just to maybe get kind of a show of hands, like how many of you like read for yourself all the time, love it, and are like 100% like, this is the best thing. I always get great readings. I do. Are there some? Good. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad to see that. How many people are like, wow, I love to read for myself, but sometimes it's really confusing and I just wish I had a few tips for making it better. Okay, so we've got a good number of hands for that one too. Okay, that's our topic for today. And some people just show up every time because they like me, which is awesome. And so they don't really need the topic, but hopefully even if that's true, and even if you are a great reader for yourself, you will still get some ideas maybe, and some hopefully some fresh perspectives, some new ways of looking at things. Okay, today's topic is be the best reader for you. Tips for reading tarot for yourself. That's by Joy Vernon, which is me, and this is for the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup, and that's today's date and the time. So here's our agenda for today. First of all, we're just going to explore the question, not really explore it, but just kind of ask the question, can you read for yourself? What about the big life questions? We'll take a look at the pros and cons of getting that outside perspective, and kind of look at the idea that it's hard. It is hard to read for yourself in some ways. And then we'll look at my solutions, which is really the body of what we're talking about today, and we'll have a practice time. So can you read for yourself? It's a common belief in the tarot reading world that you can't read for yourself. The conventional wisdom is that you're too close to the situation. You might lack objectivity. Often we get too invested in particular outcomes. You know, of course, we always second guess ourselves and on. So, and essentially the mind that created the problem can't solve the problem. So some readers still like to read for themselves for the small things, but when the question is important or confusing, then they tend to reach out to another reader for an added perspective. And then the ultimate question, don't you always hear people say, aren't tarot readings a conversation? I hear people say that all the time. And so you like, if it's a conversation, that means there's two. And so in that sense, it's like, if that's true, then maybe we can't read for ourselves. So big life questions. Eventually, a profound question enters our lives. Important decisions, and these are just examples that I hear a lot from people: whether to stay in a good but unfulfilling job, where to move to, when to end and when to keep a relationship, making a major purchase. These types of things can cripple even the most analytical brain with indecision. But more than solving life dilemmas, many people want to know, am I doing something wrong? How did I get here? How can I reach my goals? How can I move past these roadblocks that prevent my growth? Ultimately, their question becomes, am I on the right track? Am I on the right path? It feels like we're missing bus after bus as we sit in the terminal, wondering how to get where we want to go in our life. We don't have the knowledge or experience we need to figure out how it works. We realize we simply want someone to tell us which bus to get on to get to our destination. So we look outside for answers. People who are ready to help us include friends and family, someone dedicated to helping, such as a therapist, a religious leader, or a coach, or of course, a professional reader. Those outside perspectives, though, are not necessarily our perspective. We try a variety of solutions. Talk to a friend, our family, that one person you can always trust. These people know us the best, they care about us the most, and they are invested in what's best for us. But sometimes they know you too well. They can be averse to you taking risks. Worse, sometimes they've already decided what's right for you. And if so, they probably want to convince you of their opinion, not help you explore new ways of thinking. So you reach out to someone dedicated to helping, such as a therapist, a religious leader, or a coach. They have experience helping people sort through problems. That's what they do. They have expertise, usually in a particular method for arriving at answers. But sometimes they don't really know you. And it's possible that they're going to rely on general good advice that seems kind of one size fits all. And the very best of them will just turn the question back on you, and you're still stuck making the decision. And if they're not as good at guiding, then it can just be very frustrating to work with under those circumstances. So you go to a reader. A professional reader works with a large set of symbols that combine into a unique story that outlines a suggested course of action for you. This is how they get so personal with you so fast. They have a unique ability to cut directly to the heart of the matter. However, readers vary greatly in their style and abilities. How do you know who to choose? Readings can be expensive. Is it worth it? And will I get my questions answered, or just hear a bunch of new age schlock? It's like, oh, it's all for the best. Just let go and let God. I've said those things, I'll admit it. But no, seriously, it's like you want a real answer. You need to know what to do. So ultimately, will any of these helpers understand me and my needs? Will the advice truly feel personal, as if they're speaking straight to my heart? That's what we need. Eventually, we realize only we can make our decisions. If I want to understand what's best for me, shouldn't I be able to look into my own heart, my own psyche, my own future, and see what I need to know? I do want to find my own answers. Why is it so hard? So we set aside some time, light a candle, pull out our favorite deck, and start shuffling. Doubt creeps in. Why should this reading be any different from the others I do? How can I make it better, clearer, more relevant, more accurate? How can I be the best reader I can be and the only reader I'll ever need?
There you go.
Solutions and how to use them. It's not easy and it takes practice, but you can do it. Over the next few slides, I'll share a list of solutions for you to try. Practice these tips to get the most out of every reading. Use all the tips together to create a profound reading experience, or incorporate them one at a time. Become familiar and comfortable with a suggestion before adding in another. There's no order. Start with the ones that make the most sense to you. When you're ready to go up a level, add in something new. Eventually, you'll include as many of these steps as resonate with you. That might mean that eventually you include all of them. It might mean eventually you narrow it down to just the 2 or 3 things that always work for you. You know, it's your experience, and I've got a bunch of suggestions, so don't think that you have to do all of them. It's about finding what works for you. So be the best reader for you. These tips fall into 3 simple categories: before the reading, during the reading, and after the reading. Simply put, there are only 3 primary recommendations. 1, take time to get in the right mindset for a reading. 2, maintain a sense of open curiosity during the reading. And 3, document your experience after the reading. Doing all 3 of these will let you be the best reader that you can be. So before the reading, make the experience more formal. Set sacred or private space. And this can be a wonderful reading, especially if you're caught up in a lot of confusion. Setting sacred space, particularly something formal like opening a temple or casting a circle, this can be very powerful for putting you out of the mundane world where the confusion reigns and lifting you into the spiritual realm where the answers lie. So doing something formal like that can be wonderful for clearing away everything and getting in the right space to do a reading for yourself. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You can light a candle. You can burn some incense or do some, essential oil room spray or something like that. You can just find a time and place where you can be alone. Sometimes that's all you need. So it can be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. The next step is to release your expectations. Meditate. You can do breathing exercises, pray, create art, play music, move mindfully, or anything along those lines. So again, get the kinks out, something that clears your mind. Get to the heart of the question. Journal first and write until you identify the issue that underlies the problem. This is my trick. This is the thing that I've done going back years and years, decades, probably, yeah, definitely decades. Going back decades, this is what I have always done to get myself in the right mind frame to do a really deep reading. Identify the issue. The question that I come into the reading with, I start like a lot of times I'll be like, I kind of know the answer to this. So I just start writing. It's like, well, my question is this, but I think this would be the answer, right? And then I just keep journaling and kind of go from there. And then I start to see all the complications involved. And that helps me release my preconceived stuff and get down into the underlying issue that really needs to be addressed. So then once you're clear on that underlying thing, then proceed with your reading, because now you understand the real question. Connect with your guides, angels, higher self, or the divine. Invite spiritual helpers or those who govern the divination process. Mercury is traditional. Thoth. Aleister Crowley has a little one-line invocation he does to the tarot angel Haru, and that it can be a full-on invocation, or it can be, again, just a simple sentence, God of divination, please look over my reading and guide me in my process, something simple like that. Set an intention for truth, clarity, and compassion. And again, this one's one that I use with clients, I use with myself. This is one of my favorites. Just set that intention. Truth, so that it is accurate. Clarity, so that you understand what's going on. And compassion, so that you can hear the most difficult news that might be revealed. And hopefully it's not difficult, but if it is, that it's relayed to you, that you receive it in a compassionate manner so that you can hear it and understand it. During the reading, ask a clear question. Most tarot readers are trained in that, and so that's always the best way to go. I'm not going to go into questions. We can maybe do an actual meetup on that at some point. It would be a good topic. Be curious. I think this is one of the main things. Be curious, honestly and earnestly desire to know the answer. If you do have an expectation for an outcome, it is so easy, and I even see this with clients, energetically imposing their expectation on the cards. And it'll skew the reading. Once you have the question, and you can think about what you want, you can say, I really want this, help me get it. But when you go to pull those cards, you have to let your expectations go. You have to let your question go. You have to let all of the chaos come to a stillness, let it all go, and be open and empty and ready to receive, because that is the power of getting the answer. Keep it small. Use simple questions or small spreads, like 2 or 3 cards. I like 2 card spreads. I'll shuffle up, cut the deck, top card, bottom card, and I'll answer. I get a dialogue going. That's the next step, but I'll do top card, bottom card. I'll ask a simple question like, what happens if I do this, top, bottom? And I look at that and get an answer from the cards. And like, okay, well, based on that answer, what about this? And then I'll ask another question and get another answer from the deck. So I don't always lay out big spreads. I do this kind of short and fast. I might do a presentation on that sometimes so I can show you that, but that's really all there is to it. I don't know what else I would say about it except do an example, but then get this little dialogue going. So I ask a question, the cards give me an answer, and based on that answer, just like you're communicating with another person, just like respond to that answer with another question, just like you're having a dialogue with somebody. That's like one of the key things. But apart from using the small spreads of 2 or 3 cards, you can, when you use those bigger spreads, break them down into smaller sections. You'll find that you get a lot more out of it. Break it into bite-sized chunks and work through one chunk at a time before moving on. Another trick that I use is to explore the question from multiple angles, and that really helps me with perspective. And so I'll say, what is the outcome if I do this? What is the outcome if I don't do this? I'll say, I used this example once before. So many people, clients will come up, they always want to know what somebody else is thinking about them, and irregardless of whether that's a useful way of exploring things, sometimes you just want to know. If you ask a question like, what is this person thinking of me? Ask, what do I think about this person? Ask, mix it up. Sometimes you'll get a surprising answer and you'll be like, oh, I didn't realize I was bringing this into the situation. So anything you can think of, explore it from 2 or 3 different perspectives, and that helps that you can create the experience of getting those outside perspectives by mixing up your questions. So that's basically that suggestion. Then after the reading, you could track your readings in a journal or on a reading spreadsheet, and something that you can hole punch and compile into a ring binder. Go back and review your old readings and take notes on what happened. Noticing the things you got right and the things you missed is one of your best learning techniques. And you can see my old journals where I do go back and do this, and I write down what happened. Sometimes when I had more presence of mind, I would date the additional comments that I made. And sometimes I think it was just a coincidence, but once I noticed it was happening, I started trying to do it intentionally. Use a different color ink, because it helps the later additions stand out from the original reading. But when you do that, you learn a lot about what you missed the first time around, and you'll get to be much better at reading for yourself. Create a database. I know more than one person that has done this. They keep a complete list of all their readings. I think one person had all 78 cards down one side of a spreadsheet, and then dates across the top of the spreadsheet. And then every date they did a reading, they just put an X in the boxes, like an Excel spreadsheet, an X in the boxes of the cards that came up that day. And then they could analyze how many times they got the 3 of Wands in a year, some such thing. Anyway, I've never done that. I don't know. I can definitely see that it might be useful if you like doing that kind of thing. It might be useful if you want to watch for themes. So that could be pretty interesting, but that's not my suggestion, but I've heard of it from more than one person. So it might be worth a try. Ugh. Does this mean I'll be spending hours on every reading for the rest of my tarot life? I'm out. No, 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 no. Yeah, there might be a few readings where you spend a couple hours. Getting to know something takes extra time. But once you've built the rapport with your cards, you're off and running. It's so much better to take a few hours on a few readings and really put in that time to deeply connect with your deck than to always do fast readings and always just like pull the book out and see what it says and not ever make that personal connection. The other thing that I think, and I was going to put this in the slide and I forgot, but luckily I remembered right now. The other thing, I always think of tarot time as me time. I think of it as self-care time. So yeah, I think it's totally cool. Like when you have that, evening free or that weekend free and there's nobody around, or you've got like some spare time or something like that, just go ahead and fill it up with some tarot, some really good, deep, yummy tarot. And really go deep and explore with it and see how amazing you feel afterwards. I mean, it's yeah, we want to be able to get questions answered quickly, and believe me, you will, but reading tarot is fun. Enjoy it. I used to spend hours with every reading, it is true, but now I'll connect to spirit like in a with a shutting my eyes, boom, and then ask for truth, clarity, and compassion. I do that while I'm shuffling. I put the deck down, put my hand on it, and I ask the question. Then I let it go and become open to receiving. And remember, I used to really drill down on like repeat the question over and over again. Double down, I think, is the expression. I just say the question over and over again, but I realized it was preventing me from then opening up because I was directing the question into the deck. I then, after doing that, then I needed to release it and be open to receiving the answer. At that point of releasing and entering that state of potential or curiosity, that's when you cut the deck. And then with these guidelines in place, accurate answers just pop right out at me as I read the image. And sure, that certainly is 30 years experience, but I mean, this kind of stuff can happen to a brand new beginner. So having an answer pop out at you does not require 30 years experience. Like really, I don't even know if I'll say that. Just it's I mean, there's so many. I get stuck here because Mary Greer just had a thing on her Facebook page where she had this big conversation going, and I did not get involved. I love to read things on Facebook, but I don't like to respond. And but I did read a lot of the conversation, and people were really kind of, I don't know, antagonistic, I guess, frustrated with people that think that they can just read right away. And I'm like, but you can. But you can read right away because tarot is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to let you access your subconscious. And so you can read right away because it's easy. And does it get better when you put in hours and hours and years and study and all of that stuff? Oh yeah, it gets way better. But is it good right off the bat? It sure is. So yeah, don't, there's value to study. Believe me, I studied a lot. There's value to just like grabbing a deck and going for it. Anyway, with all of that said, for myself, I can do a quick, accurate reading in just a minute or two. It's just like, boom, I can just do it as fast as I need to. Okay, no more second guessing. 3 rules for being the best reader for yourself. 1, find clarity by connecting to spirit, because this is divine truth. And that is that clarity could have said focus. I could have said centeredness. Get centered, connect to spirit. That's where truth resides. Be curious and honestly desire an answer, because the power of asking leads to wisdom. Trust the process, the cards, divine source, and your own abilities, because faith that the answer is right for you leads to understanding. When you have faith, when you trust that these cards are helping you, that they are connected to spirit, that they're connected to your greater good, when you know that, no matter how confusing the answer might seem at first, you trust that you will be able to work it out and understand it. The cards are not trying to speak Latin at you. They're trying to give you advice. They're not trying to make it complicated. So the answer is there, and you in your current state can understand it. And yeah, the more you learn, the better you'll get at, basically increasing your tarot vocabulary, but the cards will meet you where you're at and give you the advice that you need. Now you can not only read for yourself, but you will be the best reader you've ever had. Grab your workbook and let's practice. So we're going to spend the rest of our time doing a practice. I do have a few more slides to go through that just kind of round out the presentation part. So want more? Here's what's next. I just put up this morning our next event for the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup is the first Saturday, where we've been exploring the cube of space. We've gone through all of David Allen Hulse's work, and now we're started on Kevin Townley's work. And so this is the first Saturday. It's ongoing. You're welcome to join at any time. It's a really deep dive into some esoteric tarot approaches. Then after that, the next third Saturday, which is the general interest tarot, I'm going to do Joy's Quick Start Tarot Guide. And that should be pretty nice. That'll be June 18th. And then I'm actually teaching my Magician's Tools Beginning Tarot class, which I have not taught since 2019. I kind of got grumpy about having to put all my classes online, and so I developed new classes, which was fun. But now I'm finally getting around to getting that class up online. So Magician's Tools Beginning Tarot class, that starts in June, and it is up on my website if you would like to take a look. Here's some additional resources. I first wrote on this topic on my blog, and it was called 10 Reasons You Can't Read Tarot for Yourself and What to Do About It. I put it here because it actually has some additional suggestions that I didn't include here. So if you're loving the ideas that I have, please go check that out. Because it has a few more suggestions. If you're really stuck in a catch-22 situation, my post Earned Success is a tarot spread that's designed to give you a solution to an unresolvable dilemma. There's my whole tarot spreads categories if you want to just explore some other spreads. If you want a meditation practice to try before doing a reading, I recommend the basic Reiki meditation. It's called Joshin Kokyuho, and it's a breathing meditation to still the mind, basically. And it's a very good beginner meditation. It's excellent for getting you centered, which is what you need prior to doing a reading. And that one that link that I gave you there has a guided meditation, like MP3 business thing. And then there's a fourfold breath with Tarot Aces meditation. Again, really excellent beginning meditation. It's tarot related, and that link does have instructions on how to perform it, but also a MP3. Tarot reading worksheet to record your readings. It's in the workbook. These are in the workbook, but if you just want the PDF itself, there's one worksheet for 1 to 3 card spreads and another worksheet for up to 10 card spreads. Thank you for attending. Be the best reader for you. You can visit my website, joyvernon.com, for more information, classes, or to schedule a reading. Remember to stop by my blog, completelyjoyous.com, or of course at joyvernon.com, just click blog from the menu. Of course, follow all of our great events at the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup. We've got some really good stuff coming up. Subscribe to me at Joy Vernon Astrology Tarot Reiki on YouTube. And much thanks and gratitude. If you do want to, I love doing these free presentations, but sometimes people ask if they can donate, and those are gratefully accepted via PayPal, joy@joyvernon.com. That's who I am. And that's the final slide. So I'm going to go on to questions. So Elizabeth says, I find that it is accurate, but I always second guess. And then I get a reading from another reader and it's the exact same outcome. Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. It's a second guessing that gets us. I've got some, I think I talk about that a little bit more in the workbook. I want to talk to you more about the idea of no more second guessing. Now, I included this in the workbook, but it didn't make it in its entirety into the slideshow. And in retrospect, I want to make sure that I cover it. So I'm adding this little section in. So of course, and this is true for me, it's true for anybody, even the best tarot readers can have doubts. And it's totally true that a few minutes later, a few hours later, a few days later, you think of other interpretations for a reading that you did. And I think when you're less experienced, I do think that sometimes those later interpretations can give you something, can help you see. It's just like your brain is slower at processing. And then after it's had a time to process, and it's like, okay, well, maybe this is what was going on. And then you can be like, oh yeah, and this is a little bit too of the keeping records, going back. It's like, oh wait, I reinterpreted this and now I'm wondering if maybe this is what that meant. That's why we take those records. And then when ultimately, and this is also why I like doing slightly more predictive readings, when we actually go through the experience that we're anticipating, then we can come back and say, well, okay, now I know that this is what those cards had meant. But anyway, after a certain amount of time passes, you think of alternate interpretations, you become frustrated that there's so many layers of meanings in the cards. Your confidence crumbles and your insightful interpretation lies in ruins. One thing I hear over and over from readers of many experience levels is that they wish they were more confident. I'm here to tell you, confidence is a mirage. When we think of confidence, we usually think of our own inner strength. But the truth of the matter is the reading doesn't come from us. Tarot readings come from something greater than us. And I don't care what vocabulary you want to throw at it. Who knows what it is, where it comes from, what synapses are firing where. That to me is not relevant, but these are the words that I have heard used for it that make sense to me. Just think of it as your superconscious. You can think of it as your higher self. If you want to call it angels or guides, do that. Some people believe that readings come from the universe, from spirit, from the divine. For whatever vocabulary you use to indicate that something is beyond the physical, that's what we're talking about. We have confidence in ourselves, but we have faith in spirit. And so confidence tends to much more often be used to reference the individual, myself, I'm confident. But when we use the word faith, then we so often that word is used in connection with the spiritual. So we have confidence in ourselves, but we have faith in spirit. And since readings are coming from beyond ourselves, confidence isn't really necessarily relevant in some ways. There are ways in which it is on a real practical level, but ultimately, in terms of actually connecting with the source of the great insight, wisdom, and revelation that we get in the reading experience, that's from spirit, and that is something that we have faith in. Developing faith, we can call it trust, is key. Trust the process, trust the cards, trust divine source, and yes, trust your own abilities. There are 3 rules for being the best reader for yourself, and I did mention this in the slideshow. Find clarity by connecting to spirit, because this is divine truth. Be curious and ask honestly, because the power of asking leads to wisdom. Trust the process, the cards, divine source, and your own abilities, because faith in the answer leads to understanding. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to emphasize, is that when you have faith that the cards are on your side, that they want to communicate clearly with you, you're much more likely to be willing to work through the initial confusion of the images of basically the language that the cards are using, and say, okay, am I understanding this correctly? Is this what you mean? And really work to understand that, and to reflect it back through additional questions and additional card pulls if need be, or just taking those cards at face value. And I don't mean pulling a gazillion clarifiers. That's not where I'm going. You can get into a deep dialogue, which we talked about earlier, but just even taking a given set of cards and really working until you're like, I know you're trying to tell me something. I am going to keep working with you until I understand it. And that's faith. That's faith, because you've seen, and faith usually is based on experience. Faith is not quite as blind as people make it out to be. Usually there's experiences that you've had that help you build that trust. They might not be experiences that you can quantify in a certain way, but you have experienced it, you know that it's true. So that's what we're trying to do. When we have faith in the answer leads to understanding, because when we trust, when we have faith that the cards that came are trying to tell us something important, it helps us process it until we understand. And this is really key, because this is where we get the really deep answers that we're seeking. When you approach a reading with clear intent, an honest question, and faith, then you will get true, easy to understand, and compassionate answers. Could there be other interpretations? Sure. But when you follow these 3 rules, no other meaning will have any relevance, because you've already discussed it with your highest truth. After all, tarot readings are always conversations. So I hope that this gives you something to think about. You're not just reading for yourself, you're reading with spirit via a conversation with spirit. And that is the key to being the best reader that you can be. You're letting spirit read for you. So that's the secret. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.